Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Log Show here on YouTube. Hopefully, if the audio is good this week, last week was going to be the first one I posted on Spotify. Hopefully, you guys are listening to me on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you guys get your podcasts. Hopefully. I don't know. It's hard for me to check my mic, how it's working during the podcast. I could check as much before, but once I get going, I could only do so much. I know I got a weird camera view for you guys today who are watching on the YouTube. Some camera difficulties made me have to do a wonky little thing, so we got like a nice little fisheye view for you guys today. The camera's a little closer to me for you guys today here. But a whole lot to talk about, especially while we live in this New York, New Jersey area, especially in the world of football. As we saw yesterday, the New York Giants officially announced they have fired head coach Brian Daboll after 4 seasons with the team, 3.5 technically, because he didn't finish his 4th season. Not a great overall record for Brian Daboll. Not only that, the Jets get their first home win this weekend. If I remember correctly, the Cincinnati game was in Cincinnati, right? So it was their first home game this weekend against the Cleveland Browns. I was there for it. Just saying, hey, Woody Johnson, if you're listening, the Jets have won 4 home games over the past year. I've been to Jets 4 home games over the past year. The Jets are 4-0 with me in the building of MetLife. Woody Johnson, Jets PR, just call me up. You know, I'll do the podcast live from Jets games every Sunday. You know what I'm saying? It'd be fun. That'd be a lot of fun. So, we could definitely figure something out there. All right. You're undefeated with me in the building over the past 2 years. I've been there for every win. I was there for the Dolphins last game of the year. I was there for the Halloween Garrett Wilson catch. There for the Patriots win last year. And I'm there for the Browns win this year. So, hey, Jets, let me know. Let me know, Jets. Let me know where my tickets are. But they get a great win. Nonetheless, the playoff picture, hey, we're in week 10, boys and girls. We are in week 10. The playoff picture's heating up as you have 3 teams tied for the top of the AFC with 3 losses, if I remember correctly, or 2 losses. Let me double check it. With 2 losses, Colts, Broncos, and Patriots are all tied there with 2 losses. The Colts are going into a bye week this week. The other 2 are not. And the NFC is heating up with the Packers losing a big one last night, giving the Eagles by far sole possession of first place, with some teams trailing behind them. You got the Seahawks, Lions, Buccaneers, and some other squads. So that is heating up as well as obviously football is not the only sport going on these days. We have basketball, we have hockey. Last night in hockey, we got a lot. We got the Islanders traveled to New Jersey, and they snapped that Devils home winning streak. Go Isles, baby, as they surprised many in the Rock in that game. And the Rangers get a win last night, 6-2 over the Preds. So that one is fun to watch. The Knicks did not play last night. The Knicks play tonight at 7:30. The Grizzlies will travel to MSG to play the New York Knicks. That's what we got going on around the world of sports right now. Not a whole lot, but the biggest news across many, many, many places, many news sites, First Take, ESPN, NFL Network, all of them right now, is the firing of head coach Brian Daboll. Yes, Brian Daboll is out as the Giants head coach after that magical first year that saw him win Coach of the Year, saw him go 9-7-1 and make the playoffs and even win a playoff game with Daniel Dimes and the New York Giants, Danny Jones and the New York Giants down there. That's what we saw in the first year of Brian Daboll, but after that it was nothing good as he goes 20-40-1 in total over the 4 years. And a lot of question marks. And I think the biggest question you have to ask, if I'm going to be serious here, as the New York Giants, is the question of, realistically, guys, if we're going to all be honest with each other here, was this the smartest decision for the New York Giants to make? That's the question that everyone's going to be asking. Because on paper, it seems like, oh, blaringly, yes, why do you not fire this guy? This is the decision for the New York Giants to make, is what everyone would think at first. But I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. And I've been thinking about the firing for now a full day. Obviously it's gone through many people's heads. Many people have been thinking about it. The report came out from Jason Marash on WFAN that they wanted Mara and them wanted to fire him on the plane home from the Broncos loss, which was also not a good loss. But is this the right decision for the New York Giants? And this is why I asked that. When you look at the entirety of Daboll's coaching extent here for the New York Giants. Like I said, overall he goes 20-40-1, correct? Right? As the Giants head coach, as we saw. We'll see Kafka take over as interim head coach. I don't know if I mentioned that before, but like I said, Daboll's out. 20-40-1 as Giants head coach. They were 9-7-1, as I said. In their first season, it was a good year. And that was the only season that Daboll had Daniel Jones for 16-plus games. Besides that, he had him last year for 10 games and he gets benched. The year before Daniel Jones gets injured, only plays for 6. The year before that, he is also injured. He gets benched in 24. He then gets injured in 23. And in 22 was 23. I don't know if I have the years right. Sorry. I might have my numbers wrong. But nonetheless, the first year in playoffs, second year, Daniel Jones injured. Third year, Daniel Jones sat. Fourth year, this is where we are in our fourth season here. And here's where we are. And when you look at this Giants roster that has been constructed under Daboll over the past 4 years, that's where I really question where it's like, you've gave this man so much faith over the past 4 years and so much leeway due to the roster that he has, that the minute he got a roster and it got injured and it wasn't going the way that you maybe have hoped, you pulled the trigger on him. And I feel like, I don't know, as much as I maybe wasn't a giant Brian Daboll supporter, and I didn't think he was the greatest coach of all time. I've been on here multiple times. I've been around the block multiple times. I've talked to many, many people about Brian Daboll and about how I feel about his play calling and certain things like that might be happening within the Giants front office. And it's an interesting decision because, like you say here in the chat, Vin, for talking about Jets fans and firing coaches midseason. One, it's never a good look. Two, you have the whole situation where, like I said, you gave this man so much lee room on these past rosters where he was starting Tommy DeVito and he was and Drew Lock was getting starts. And, 2 of those 4 years you had three or more quarterbacks start at least 2 games, with Tommy DeVito starting 2 games in both of those years, with Drew Lock starting games last year, Tyrod Taylor the year before, and then Daniel Jones obviously starting games at some point in both of those seasons. You've had 3 total quarterback start games for you over those past 2 years, not counting that playoff year. Not only that, you've been riddled with injuries. And in a year where you finally get your roster, you are continued to be riddled with injuries. Your young star wide receiver in Malik Neighbors tears his ACL. He's out for the year. Then as soon as your team seems to start to be getting a rhythm, you might lose to the Saints there in the middle there, and we'll get to those losses that happen. I'll definitely talk about those. But, you beat the Eagles on a Thursday night football game on a short week that nobody expected you to. You beat the Chargers on that week when you put in Dart for the first week and no one expected it to happen. And Tyrone Tracy pops his shoulder, so Scatabo starts getting a lot of touches in that game. And you really break out in that Chargers game. And then, you have a few bad losses or 2, but the team is riddled with injuries. You have Scatabo also. He got injured 2 weeks ago. He's out for the year. In this game against the Bears, you were up 17-10 going into that fourth quarter. The rhythm of the offense was flowing fine with Jackson Dart, even as that quarter ended, as that third quarter ended. And something happens, someone gets tipped off that makes them evaluate him for a concussion. It's found that he has a concussion, he's out for the game, and the offense becomes a standstill with Russell Wilson and in that offense. It becomes a standstill with Russell Wilson. And what you see is you blow a lead there, up 17-10 in the fourth quarter, and the Bears are able to get a win. You go back to that Denver loss that everybody talks about so heavily. You have that situation where realistically, if you really break it down, how much can you blame? Sorry, I tripped over my words there. But how much can you really blame Brian Dable for your kicker missing 2 extra points? You lose that game by 1 point. If literally just those extra points go in, the Denver Broncos are in a more difficult position to win the game. There are multiple 2-point conversions that have to happen for the Denver Broncos to win that game. If extra points are just hit, Brian Dable has had success, and the success was being shown when this team was healthy for the New York Giants. It was doing very well with the New York Giants healthy. So is Brian Dable being fired necessarily the greatest decision to make after, yes, what was an ugly loss to the Chicago Bears in a game that was very winnable against Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears? But when I went back and I looked at that film again this morning, when I looked at that film on Monday morning yesterday as well, and I was watching what I watched when I rewatched the game yesterday. Like I said, when I watched the film today and rewatched the game again today, what I saw was a team that when Jackson Dart was on the field was vibing. Because guess what? The offense runs through Jackson Dart. Tyrone Tracy ain't going nowhere. He was getting 3 yards a carry. Devin Singletary wasn't going anywhere. You have no one to throw the ball to. That needed to be addressed. I think it's an issue that many people are talking about when it comes to him and the way he might play, and the fact that they might have to look at him and go, hey, kid, don't lead with your head. And that's why this concussion came, because many people saw it coming. You know, when I was at the Jets game this weekend, which I'll talk about in a little bit, I was glad. It was a great game. It was so much fun to go to the Jets game. It was a fun win to watch. But when my friend Vin looked at me, who's in the chat right now, when he looked at me and he went, Dart's concussed, Dart's out with a concussion, not only did I say what a surprise sarcastically, the dude next to us in the section said what a surprise sarcastically. His kids said what a surprise sarcastically, because everybody knew that it was bound to happen with the way that Jackson Dart plays football. It is bound to happen that he was going to get hurt at some point this year, especially when Scatterbo goes down. So now you can't give Scatterbo the ball, and the run game just started to fall flat. You have no wide receivers. Like, it's a question of where did you jump the gun as John Mara and Joe Sheen in this front office? Because that's the other question there. It throws a huge red flag up to me that you're giving the excuse of the injury out. One built the roster that isn't deep enough for Brian Dable to coach. One built the roster that as soon as 2 players got injured, the offense fell flat, and God forbid Dart also got injured, which we saw happen in the fourth quarter on Sunday. That guy doesn't get an ounce of blame. No, that guy, he's going to lead the search for our next head coach. But Dable's on the out. And I don't know if it's necessarily the right decision. I sat here with the same point in week 8 of last year when, like, Vin, you're saying, like you're saying about the Jets firing a coach midseason. I said it about Saleh last year, and it held true. That it was at the end of the day, firing Saleh at the point they fired him was not smart. Moving on from Saleh was a smart decision, but they shouldn't have done it when it was done. Now, and I'm going to say the same thing about the Giants. Yes, maybe Dable at the end of the year after talking about was an inevitable decision. But I think it was unfair to not go into the offseason and evaluate it and look back and go, well, his star in Scatterbo did fall apart and break his ankle in week 6 or week 7. Look at it and go, oh, he didn't have a number 1 wide receiver all year. He had Wandell Robinson and Darius Slayton as his best receivers. But you know what's a positive to look at? Since Jackson Dart stepped on the field, the O-line's been playing the best it has all year. You think of that, right? Ever since Jackson Dart stepped onto the field, it wasn't a question of, and it was in the first couple games, but we asked it. We go, is this O-line going to protect him? And the questions that came down about Jackson Dart after that and why he would be continued to get hurt wasn't because he wasn't protected, but it was because he didn't protect himself when he would run the ball. Correct? Is that not all what we said? So I don't know if firing Dable is the correct decision. I can't say whether it is or isn't. I genuinely cannot say whether firing Dable was the wrong or right decision going forward. I don't always love it. Especially when you have a rookie quarterback who's going to develop, who in a play calling system was thriving with Dable. Dable was calling plays that Jackson Dart was succeeding under. Like yes, maybe the wins weren't coming. And I understand when you look at those 4 losses, right? The glaring stat that everyone pulled out yesterday and on Sunday after the Giants loss was the New York Giants are 0-4 in games when leading by 10 points on the road this season. Glaring stat. BR posted it. ESPN posted it. SportsCenter whoever you could talk about. Bleacher, all of them. The Athletic, they all posted some version of that stat when either Dable got fired or when the Giants blew the lead on Sunday. But when I didn't see the game, I was just as shocked as everyone else. But what I can't help but see was that there was success for your rookie quarterback under this coach. So to send him packing midway through the season seems like such a dumb decision when you've seen in other franchises, arguably one that's 10 feet away across the locker room, fail time and time again to get that coach-quarterback connection. It's not like you got to look very far as the New York Giants to see a franchise that has screwed up that decision time and time again on whether it's getting rid of a coach too early or not trusting the quarterback for too long. You got to look 10 feet away and look at the New York Jets. And you see a great big example of what you could be doing if you make these decisions too rash, too harshly, too fast, without thought, without proper, discussion as a franchise. Without a proper sit-down talk of, hey, going forward for not only us, but for our quarterback, and our franchise, what is the right decision? And if John Mara and Joe Shine said getting rid of Dable because there are other options, is that what they like? I don't know. What are those other options? When you looked at the betting odds that came out today, the favorite is Mike McCarthy. I'm sorry, what? You get my point? Is that the best option? If we're going to sit here and look at this at the end of the day after this, and you're going to tell me that the Giants would be that much better this year with Mike McCarthy as their head coach, I don't know. I don't know if I could agree with that one. I don't know if I can necessarily say that. Like what? Like really here, really. Let's really break it down and look at the options. I listed, what is it? What do I have here? I believe I listed 10 of them. I argue that maybe three of them are good choices. One of those 3 is realistic, right? here are all my choices, right? And then I'll single in on the ones that I feel could be the three best, right? You have written in many articles, many rumors, and is on the list, Bill Belichick out of UNC. But I'm sorry, if anybody wants to pick up that Jordan Hudson, Bill Belichick clown show, and you want to pick it up in New York City, you're a joke. You don't want to do that, right? Then you go down the list, you go Joe Brady in Buffalo, What he's done in Buffalo is crazy, but, what are you picking up Joe Brady for? Oh, because he's done great with Josh Allen in the offense? Who built Josh Allen in the offense? The guy you hired. That's why you hired him. So that's why the Joe Brady one I find really interesting. Then you have people like Jeff Hafley and Lou Anarumo, who I think would be interesting choices because they're defensive head coaches. These are dudes who, you unless you're keeping Kafka, who obviously is also another choice for head coach, but as your OC, maybe that could work then. If you could keep continuity somewhere in the coaching staff, you go with a Lou Anarumo, who has a lot of ties within the franchise of the New York Giants, who interviewed for the job back when Dable got it in 2022. Maybe that one because you're keeping Kafka and you're keeping continuity somewhere within the coaching staff for Jackson Dart. Then we start getting into names that I like a lot more, starting in ones that are a little more realistic because they're coordinators in the league. You got Clint Kubiak, who was the Saints OC last year, so I have a lot of personal connection with him. I've seen him do a lot of great things with a lot of bad. Him over there in Seattle, what he's been able to do with Sam Darnold, I could see him getting a shot at a head coaching job. You have Matt Nagy possibly getting a second chance after falling flat in Chicago. Getting another shot. Obviously, former head coach of the Arizona Cardinals with the Kyler Murray situation. Now been the OC in Washington, something they've seen firsthand, which has been in their division with Jaden Daniels, done amazing things there with that offense. So those are ones that I find interesting. I love Clint Kubiak, and I don't hate the thought of Matt Nagy getting another shot as an NFL head coach, especially with Jackson Dart down there. Now, the one that obviously is the biggest long shot, that's the really the only head coach on my entire list here that I could see going, okay, firing Dable even at week 10 to start the discussions with this dude to try to get this as done as soon as possible, is obviously Lane Kiffin. If you can somehow, if John Mara and Joe Shine and this front office can work up some sort of magical deal to drag Lane Kiffin away from college football and Ole Miss and bring him back to Jackson Dart, that is the only coach I see on this whole entire list who genuinely could pull success. Obviously, that's another name you're going to hear. I see people saying it in the chat. Another name that you're going to hear here is John Gruden. With the success that he's had on TV with Barstool, and he's won a Super Bowl in the past, and that whole situation with Gruden. Again, the only coach that I honestly see out there that could have done a better job with this team, not even that he could have done a better job with this team, but it makes sense because of the history, is bringing in Lane Kiffin. John Gruden would be 2-8 or 2-7 right now. Mike McCarthy would be 2-7 right now. Any of those free agent head coaches that you're saying, oh, the Giants should bring in this guy. Bro, with their running back going down, their number one wide receiver going down, and then their quarterback in multiple games being injured for a little bit, a lot of coaches would be 2-8 with this team. I don't know if not letting Brian Dable pound out and get through these last 7 games of the NFL season would have been such a blasphemous thought, would have been such a crazy thought for the New York Giants to have. I really don't think that it would have been that crazy of a thought to have. And I think you're listening a little too much to the media here, and you're taking you're taking a rash decision, and you're jumping the gun here because you take a bad loss in Chicago on the road in a game where you were leading going into the fourth quarter, and it sucks to see. It's another game within the past couple weeks that you've been leading going into the fourth quarter, and you end up losing that game. The Denver game hurts 10 times more. Both of them hurt immensely. When you look at both of those losses, the New York Giants, it's hard not to look at those losses and think about, hey, hey, do we move on from the guy who's the head coach here? And I think the thoughts should have been had, but the discussion should have continued. And I don't know if necessarily week 10 was the time to do it. I don't know if that ever works. You know, you look at the situation here. I mean, let's be honest, guys. You had 2 quarterbacks drafted in the first round. Both of their coaches got fired. We've had 2 rookie quarterbacks drafted in the first round this year. You had Jackson Dart at 24, and you had Cam Ward at 1. Those were the 2 guys that we saw. And what happened? Both of them no longer have the same head coach going into week 11. Does that not sound crazy to you? Does that not sound like front offices are jumping the gun a little bit there to you? Both first round picks no longer have their head coach. Both first round picks no longer have their head coach by the end of their first NFL season. And we expect success. You go back to what I said about Jackson Dart and putting him in. And it goes back to this. If you were going to fire Dable, if he went 2-8 with Jackson Dart, you shouldn't have allowed him to start him in the first place. Because all you did was put Jackson Dart in harm's way and screw up the continuity of his development. And now he's going to have to learn a whole new offense in year 2 and be on page 1 again. And God forbid you go 3-10 next year. What, you're going to fire your head coach in the first year now? And then Jackson Dart is what? What, you give that coach 2 years? What happens? What happens if this coach doesn't click with Dart? You're going to look back and go, man, we had Dable, who really had a chance. It really had a chance to click there with Jackson Dart. And he really didn't have his full team, did he? That's what's going to happen if you make the wrong decision here. Now, don't get me wrong. I could sit here and I could be biting my tongue in a year, and the Giants could sit there at 4-2, 6 weeks into the 2026-2027 NFL season. They could be sitting there at 4-2 with, I don't know, with Joe Judge, as their head coach, with Cliff Kingsbury as their head coach. And I could be wrong, and someone went there and had more success than Dable was able to have early there. But I don't know. When you look at those 4 losses that we talked about, it's the Cowboys lost. Russell Wilson was still a starter there, and it was a shootout that they lost in overtime. It was a tough loss. You look at the Saints game, it's Dart's first road game. You have 5 turnovers. Your rookie quarterback doesn't play well. It's a tough loss. You look at the Denver game, you have your kicker makes 2 extra points, and you end up losing that game by 1 because they come back and squeeze a win out. And you look at the Chicago loss, and your team and your offense is flowing until the minute that, those dudes on the sideline decide to test your quarterback for a concussion, and it happens to have he has one. And Russell Wilson steps back in, and that offense flatlines the minute Russell Wilson steps onto that football field. It's really hard for me to pinpoint where it's Dable's fault. And I might bite my tongue, but I think you had to give him another year. I really do. I think you had to give the man at least another season. At least another season. No? I get it. You look at the record and you look at the tough losses this year, and it's a hard pill to swallow. But is it necessarily that tough to go, all right, let's shoot at it again next year. We'll get another good draft pick. Go get the kid another weapon, or maybe go get the kid a right tackle he could become best friends with that's going to protect his blind side, and we can move on. And we can really push into next season, you know. We can make some moves in free agency and improve on this defense and get really going with you with Brian Dable and this offense. We can really get going. No. Like, I I don't know at what point where I put this 2-8 season. I mean, I'm serious here. 3 kicks. 3 kicks. And you're 4-6. And you're looking at a lot different of a situation. No? 3 kicks. 3 kicks. A kick in the Cowboys game and 2 kicks in the Broncos game. That's what makes or breaks a man's job. 3 kicks. That's all it took. And Dable's out of town. And you're looking at a situation where you now have a rookie quarterback. And this is a very big decision for Joe Schoen in the offense. This is a very big decision for Joe Schoen, John Mara, and the New York Giants to make about what is going to happen now with the next head coach that you are going to bring in that is going to further you into this era of Daniel Jones and further, or not Daniel Jones, of Jackson Dart, who's going to usher you into this era of Jackson Dart. Who is the man who's going to be able to do it? It is all on Joe Schoen now. It is all on a GM that many have not trusted for a while. It's the same GM that felt it was okay to let Saquon Barkley walk. That was not Brian Dable's decision. All of the bad decisions of the New York Giants have been made by this dude, and Brian Dable's the man who got fired for it after a tough loss in Chicago. And now all the pressure is now back on that man, Joe Schoen, to make this decision, to lead the charge, as John Mara said, into this head coaching search and go find the guy who's going to have. Honestly, the sad part is you're looking for similar success that Brian Dable was able to just have with Jackson Dart. Hopefully better. Yeah, you're looking for better. But you'd hope for at least the same success because Jackson Dart was playing successful. No? But that's the situation the Giants have put themselves in nonetheless. That's the situation the Giants have put themselves in nonetheless. I mean, yeah. Moving on from that across the locker room, you had the Jets get a big win this weekend. I mean, that was an exciting game to be at. First time ever in Jets history that they had both a kick return and a punt return in that game. On back-to-back possessions, they get the kick return. The Browns get the ball back. The next time they touch the ball, they take a punt return back. And all of a sudden, it's a 14-7 lead when Justin Fields had like 10 net passing yards at halftime. And the Jets special teams really won them that game. I saw Vince said it in the chat earlier that, you know, I was making fun of Cleveland fans. I was going, Cleveland, what is that doing Cleveland? And still, you know, if someone in the comments later on this video or you know, in my TikTok somewhere, if you could tell me what there is to do in Cleveland, I still haven't gotten that answer of what there is in Cleveland besides a losing franchise in the Cleveland Browns that couldn't even beat a Jets team this weekend. I had a field day with that one, not even as a Jets fan, heckling a little bit, being a little bit of, as the English would call it, an arsehole. But I was having fun nonetheless at the game. And, I mean, The kick return and the punt return is kind of all there is to talk about in the game. I hate to be that guy. That's all there really is to talk about that game. That's all there was to talk about. That was exciting, but besides that, the game was flat. David Njoku had a nice catch. Jerry Jeudy had a nice touchdown catch at some point. But besides that, you had a very, very slow game. Breece Hall got going at the end of the game, which was fun to watch. Game ended on the Brown get caught jumping off sides. Fields gets him to jump. So that's always fun when you see a moment like that live. It's kind of bad football summed up that game right there in that play with, like I said, an offsides to end it for the New York Jets. But the New York Jets nonetheless get their first home win of the season, and they move to 2-8 as well. So as we look at the NFL now, the Jets doing what the Jets do, which is winning late, possibly not getting the number 1 overall pick like all Jets fans wanted them to, but they have an abundance of picks anyway coming up in the draft that everyone remembers because of the Sauce Gardner trade last week that everyone went so crazy about. They moved to 2-8. Saints get a win. They move to 2-8, which would I love to see. They got a big win over Carolina. Like I said earlier on the intro there, with the Jets moving to 2-8, hey, Woody. Oh, you know what? No, I got to do it. Jets fans have asked me for this. I've been asked personally by Jets fans to go on this rant. I have to do it. What is Woody Johnson doing with that franchise? I don't know. I, as a non-Jets fan, will be on the supporting group. Woody Johnson needs to sell this franchise. The fact that I am going to a New York Jets game against the Cleveland Browns in November when it's raining. I was told by the gate attendant they were expecting less than 50,000 people in the stadium. $100 to park at MetLife Stadium? Are you fucking kidding me, Woody Johnson? Sorry to use the foul language, but are you kidding me? $100 to park. Not only that, you're selling parking passes to the Cleveland Browns before the game. You're closing off sections that diehard Jets fans love to tailgate in because they are right in front of the stadium for these Browns fans, for these Browns parking passes. You are closing off tailgating sections. You are closing off premium parking lots for away fans. And then you have the audacity, Woody, the audacity for the fans that are going to show up to your piss-poor team that is 2-8, that started the year 0-7, to charge $100 for parking. Oh my God, if I was a Jets fan, I would boycott this team so fast. It is an embarrassment. What Woody Johnson is doing to the New York Jets is an absolute, utter embarrassment. Just absolutely taking those New York Jets fans this week against a game, like I said, against the goddamn Cleveland Browns, for Pete's sake. You're not playing the Chiefs. You're not playing the Bills. You're playing the goddamn Browns. And I'm watching Woody Johnson charge these poor people, charge me and my friend $100 goddamn to park. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. That is not what you should be doing to your fans. The few fans that are willing to still show up week after week for that team. Think about it. Disrespectful and unappreciative to fans that have suffered. Poor Jets fans have suffered for 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. I could keep the number going because it's been that many years for these poor Jets fans of just poor ownership. Again, with Woody Johnson, year after year, it's just been poor. Prices have just gone up. You're charging $100 for parking. The New York Giants are charging $60 for the same parking lot, for the same stadium. The New York Giants are charging $35 less. It's a joke. Proves what type of franchise you run, Woody. It's a joke. Your franchise is a joke. It's terrible. It's honestly terrible. You know what else was terrible? That game last night. I barely watched it. That game sucked. Anybody else watch that? Highlight of the weekend, honestly, with the way the games went, the highlight of the weekend was, I mean, the Texans comeback was crazy. Don't get me wrong. The Texans comeback was crazy. But who didn't love in that Commanders game just out of nowhere, just great runner, what a runner. You know, I like a lot of these athletes. They're great athletes. What a runner. You know, shout out President Trump. Shout him out. Apparently he's, wants to be a sportscaster. I thought I had to worry about former athletes taking sportscasting jobs. Now all of a sudden I got to worry about the president. Wow, what a run. That's what I got to worry about now. I mean, gave great compliments to Drew Brees. He looked at Jonathan Vilma and goes, "You had a great quarterback, very accurate. What a winner. That was funny. That was a funny weekend, but whew. I mean, NFL's heating up, like I said. As I pull it up here, we get that playoff picture going. You got a three-way tie for first in the AFC between the Colts, Broncos, Patriots. Broncos got that 2 seed. The Patriots, they get the Jets on Thursday Night Football as we get to see those new rivalry jerseys this week. Colts got a bye week. Steelers still atop that AFC North at 5-4, but the Baltimore Ravens are sneaking up on them at 4-4. So just a game out of that division as the Baltimore Ravens get Lamar Jackson back and start to become sneaky as we get towards this later half of the season. And when you look at the wild card, you got the Chargers at 7-3, the Bills at 6-3, and the Jaguars staying alive at that bottom spot, keeping the Kansas City Chiefs out of the playoff for right now. I mean, 2 of those teams are playing this week. We got that Chargers-Jaguars game in Duval County. That one should be a good one. Shout out Duval. I'm applying for jobs down there. If anyone from the Jaguars sees this, shout out that team. Shout out Coach Campanelle and everything that they're going defensively. Honestly, surprise for the Jaguars this year. They've been surprising me, but a tough loss in that surprise to Houston last week. A tough loss. They got to pick that up over there. Can't have that happen. They play the Chargers this week, so that'll be a good matchup. You got the Bills playing the Buccaneers over on the NFC side, and the way that NFC side is turning out right now, you got the Eagles sitting atop of the NFC at 7-2, still flying high as they play the Lions this week. That one should be a good one as it is in Philadelphia. You got the Seahawks traveling to LA this week as they sit at the 2 seed. That is another playoff matchup between 2 teams right now tied for the top of the NFC West. So that is a big matchup that I can't wait to get to this week. Like I said, you got the Buccaneers traveling to Orchard Park to play the Bills. The Bears as a team, I was surprised to say that as of this week are in the playoffs at 6-3. The Chicago Bears, they play the Minnesota Vikings in a divisional matchup this week. And the Green Bay Packers, a team that is starting to hit the panic button at 5-3-1. Now in third in the NFC North, they travel here to MetLife this week to play the New York Giants. So that I can't wait to see. Not only that, we now have, because we are in week 10, a good old segment of my good old top 3 MVP candidates of 2025. I can't wait to talk about this. I've been waiting all year. I've been cooking it up. But sadly, you want to know why it doesn't matter? The top 3 MVP candidates, in my opinion, are so far above everyone else that the top 3 is obvious. Now, the order I have them in is very personal, as a lot of people have quarterback Drake May right now as the favorite, as their NFL MVP, but I am going to be a man who differs among many, and there is a team atop of the AFC as well that is doing just as well, that has someone else who I feel should win the MVP award, and that is Colts running back Jonathan Taylor, who is having an exceptional year. Just unreal out of Jonathan Taylor so far this year. Already has 1,100 yards, along with 15 touchdowns this year for the for the Indianapolis Colts. He has 30 receptions. He's just been a monster all over the field. He's been getting a touchdown practically every game. Jonathan Taylor, anytime touchdown is like minus 330 when you bet it. It's such an automatic bet these days. He has just been such a monster. Obviously the best running back in the league and such a vital point to that Colts offense. I've talked about this before, as you don't see the success with Alec Pierce and Michael Pittman and Daniel Jones in the passing game if you don't have a weapon like Jonathan Taylor. You saw it last year with the year that Saquon Barkley was able to have for the Philadelphia Eagles, and you're seeing it again this year in the year that Jonathan Taylor is able to have for the Indianapolis Colts. He is the heart and soul of that team. The way that every team has to put 8 people in the box to try to defend against him, and all you have to do is run a play action. Those linebackers are going to take the 2 steps up. They're going to react to the run because of what a threat Jonathan Taylor is when he has the ball. It opens up so many opportunities for Daniel Jones, Shane Steichen, and the rest of that offense to do what they have been able to do this year and really prove to many that they are a for real team this year, and that is why my log MVP is Jonathan Taylor. Now I got Drake May at 2. Close second there. And on the rear, I do have Matthew Stafford. Those are my top 3 NFL MVP candidates for this year. I say everybody, if you can, go hammer those bets on Jonathan Taylor because he is not the favorite right now. And I think that that man should be and will be the NFL MVP as long as he stays healthy for the rest of this NFL season. Now a few things to talk about before we go. I know I went so long about football. Oh no, I went for 40 minutes about Brian Daboll. Whatever will I do? It's almost like that's how I planned the show to go today. But is there something on my mind? Is there something painful that I only wanted to dip off to for 10 minutes because it's so painful to talk about because I was there watching it live in Madison Square Garden, ready for such a big year with Rick Pitino, Zuby Ejiofor, Ian Jackson, Bryce Hopkins, Dylan Mitchell, all those teams, all those new transfers. You know, you got Ruben Prey, Sadiku, Abin, Ayo. I was ready, man. Oh, I was ready going to the Garden, 12 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. I was ready to beat the Tide. I was ready to beat Bama. Boy, were we ready. And boy, was I upset. That is not the St. John's team that I saw last year that was undefeated at home. Now, don't get me wrong. I do still have plenty of faith in this St. John's team. I have plenty of faith in Zuby Ejiofor as the season goes on. He played very well in this game against Alabama. But what I noticed about this team is it doesn't feel the same as last year. And I knew that that was going to come up at some point this year, earlier rather than later, that there was going to be a game or two where you really started to feel the differences, and you felt them super, super early in the first big game of the year for St. John's and the Red Storm in this loss to Alabama. You feel it there as you just felt that this team just didn't have the same grit. You know, Ian Jackson took a while to get going. The shooting wasn't there early. You know, the rebounding, the hustle plays. I said this to a lot of people, you know. There were a lot of loose ball plays, a lot of wild plays. And I was talking about this to a lot of fellow alumni after the game. And it felt like last year, you know, with some dudes that I miss and who are thriving, you know, Simeon down in Texas. And you know, we obviously, Kadari now in the league, RJ now in the league, but Zuby still here. But you had a lot of players last year in this St. John's team that I feel like they felt like Davion Smith is another name that just popped into my head. But you felt like these players had something to prove, and on every single possession they were hustling and playing hard and playing with such grit and determination, and every loose ball you felt like they were going to get. And you didn't feel that way on Saturday in the Garden against Alabama. Alabama was the one getting every loose ball. They were the one hustling more. They were the one getting the hustle plays. You know, St. John's, we were only out rebounded 30-28, But when you look at the offensive rebound, Alabama had 14 offensive rebound compared to 8 for St. John's. Yeah, you had Zuby at 27 and 10, but when you're letting Alabama have these second chance points, as long as both of those guards, both Pylon and I'm blanking on his name. Both LeBron Pylon and Aiden Holloway. Holloway ends up fouling out at the end of the game. But you have these two guards who were playing so shifty. They were getting to the basket so easily without that physical defense that we saw out of the St. John's team from last year, with obviously a bunch of new pieces, a bunch of higher sought-out pieces. A lot of pieces that are more flashy, more are used to being the star, like an Ian Jackson, like a Bryce Hopkins, like like these players. You didn't see that same grit and grind out of St. John's, and it was very, very upsetting for me. And like I said, there was a lot of good that you saw out of the Johnnies on that night. A lot of good basketball. I think the shooting was a lot more improved than it was last year, which I like to see. Once Ian Jackson got going, he was able to hit baskets. It's just those wild shots that you see out of Ian that almost remind me of like an RJ Lewis, where there was just sometimes where RJ Lewis before last year, I'm not talking about the RJ last year, but the year before, RJ would do the same things and he wouldn't hit those baskets. So that's why I do believe in the hope for this team. I do think that there is still hope for the future of this season in St. John's, even though you have an early home loss. I think Alabama is a lot better than the 12 that they were ranked going into that game. They now moved up to 8. I think they are a top 10, top 8 team in the country 100%. I think you could argue they're arguably a top 5 team in the country as of right now. And I don't know if St. John's is a top 10 team in the country, at least the way that they played on Saturday. I think they're a top 15 team maybe, but I don't know if they're necessarily a top 10 team in the country with the way that they played on Saturday. So, they respectfully, the AP does what I thought they were going to do, which is I thought they would be moved back to 12 where Alabama was exactly, but they move them back to 13. So, you have 2 home games now at St. John's that are warm-up games for this little traveling tournament that they have in Vegas against, where they end up playing both Baylor and Iowa State. But they have the 2 home games against William and Mary this weekend on the 15th, and then Bucknell on the 25th or on the 20th. So those are games to really get everything going. Try to get Dylan Darling back healthy. Try to get a couple of these pieces back on the floor so that when you go to travel to Vegas and you play an Iowa State team that right now is ranked number 16, possibly could be a lot better by the time you play them in a week or two. It could move where they are depending on how they play. It'll be a big game for St. John's coming up. But yeah. Not only that, coming up, you got the Knicks tonight. They play the Grizzlies tonight. I've been slow on the Knicks. I haven't watched the past couple games, so I definitely will be watching tonight with nothing else on at 7:30. I definitely will be tuning in to the Grizzlies Knicks. Not only that, tomorrow for the rundown, the Devils are in Chicago. Like I said earlier today, after losing to the Islanders at home last night, the Islanders are off today and tomorrow, and the Rangers are off today. They will be in Tampa Bay at 7:30 tomorrow night. Woo! What a week we got for you guys. What a week. It was a fun week. Let me know, everybody who knows me personally, or like if you guys want to leave it in the comments, if you guys watch the videos, let me know how this camera angle is. It's a little interesting, isn't it? Let me know. Definitely let me know. But as we get an influx of viewers all of a sudden, right as I'm losing track, so I don't know. Anybody in the wanna hop in the chat for the last couple minutes? Maybe I forgot something today. Anything else anybody want to discuss here? Or are we gonna end this today? Are we gonna end this on a good vibe after the Dable firing and the Jets win? The most boring Monday night football game we ever experienced. I don't know. Sauce looked terrible in Germany. He gets his first win, though, but he got his ankles broke. I saw 1 first-round pick, 2 first-round pick like that. That's how I saw that go. That one was rough. No, I don't see anything in the don't see anything going off in the chat here for anything that I missed today. So that is that's all I'm going to have for you guys today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Everybody who did tune in, everybody who tunes in after on the YouTube. I appreciate it so much. Everybody who's been locking in to the TikTok recently. I know you guys have been seeing the content. I heavily appreciate all that over there on the TikTok and Instagram. If you guys haven't seen it, if you guys are just tuning in for the first time, follow me over there at The Log Show on TikTok, at The Log Show _ on Instagram. I will be hopefully uploading this on as an MP3 on Spotify, on YouTube. So this should be available everywhere where you guys can get your podcast for free. And if you guys are listening to this on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, as a new listener, somehow finding my first ever post, thank you so much. Come hang out with us on the YouTube every Tuesday from 2 to 3 p.m. I'd love to see you there. But that is all I got for you guys today. So I am Logan Lightcap. This is The Log Show. I will see you guys all next week. Peace.